violence is experienced by women around the world. It cuts across economic status, educational levels, and it really, in a sad way, has become a unifying factor. How do we tackle this when we talk about gender equality? How do we actually address gender-based violence? Joining me today, a very interesting panel. I'm joined by two women from different political parties, but as I said, united in their stand against this violence. Lalita Kumaramangalam, head of the National Commission for Women. I'm also joined by Swati Maliwal of the Delhi Commission for Women. Also with me, Maxwell Pereira, a well-known senior police officer who's worked in this area. I'm also joined by two interesting voices, Mandy Moore, well-known American actress, songwriter, and also now a global health advocate. I'm also joined by Indrani Goradia, who runs a very well-known organization dealing with gender-based violence. Thank you all very much for coming in. Mandy Moore, I'm going to begin with you and really ask someone whose roles perhaps portrayed a very perfect world, an ideal teen world, the world of Tangled, and many other movies which dealt with women as princesses, now deals very much with the real-life issues of women as victims of gender-based violence. How did you make that transition, and why are you in India to look at this?
I've been an advocate for issues involving women and girls for the last few years. I've been a PSI ambassador, a global health organization, for the past 6 years. I think because of the opportunities that my career has sort of afforded me and the platform that it's afforded me, I've had the chance to travel to many different places and obviously come face to face with the immense challenges that women face and the importance investing in the health and rights of women globally. And specifically, I'm here in India to talk about GBV and sort of witness some of the programs on the ground. And it's been a fascinating trip so far. I mean, women just time and time again have talked about the need for a stronger sense of community and sisterhood and networks, support groups for men and boys as well, job training so that they can have more financial security and independence, and also this sense of having this conversation out in the open and for neighbors and authority figures, not necessarily to turn a blind eye. It's not necessarily a private issue. It has to be something that we're talking about out in the open.
What did you find perhaps in common when you looked at some of the issues that women face in India and perhaps women face in America? Because often it becomes a sensitive issue, or really about, oh, why look at India as a country where violence happens against women? Why don't you look at America where the statistics are equally horrifying, if not more? So
sure.
How did you actually find the response you got here? And do you find that perhaps this is not something which is about countries but beyond?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, this is an issue that it's a global epidemic, and it's something that we can't ignore. And I'm sure people in the panel here are better suited to speak to the certain statistics. But India is no different than America. It's no different than Tanzania. It's no different than Trinidad. I mean, some of the places that I've gone and some of the programs that I visited, it's like I said, it's a global epidemic.
Indrani, come in on that perspective. That when you look at women victims around the world, do you find it sad that some of in this area perhaps, whether it comes to domestic violence, that as I said, countries like Japan, countries like America, countries like India face similar problems?
We all have the same issues in all the countries, and it is not only sad, it is criminal. It is criminal everywhere. And we are not here to say that India is worse or better or different. We are here to say, let us join our voices and our partnerships and our resources with organizations like Population Services International and USAID and the Indian government and local NGOs, and let us raise one voice to say one thing: enough, no more. We were speaking with some boots on the ground earlier, and one of the women said something so amazing. She said, the walls of patience are crumbling. Let us have them crumble all over the world.
Lalita Kumaramangalam, your perspective, you took over at a time of a new government as well as the NCW head. Yes. What's actually changed? Because many had pointed to the fact that the Nirbhay protest would be a turning point. We saw a new tough law introduced. But when we look at the horrific incidents still being reported, just this week we've seen the incident of two Nepalese women alleging gang rape by Saudi diplomat. How do you think India has progressed in its fight against gender-based violence?
Despite the fact that most people don't recognize this, India has some of the best laws that deal with violence against women. But it's in the implementation that we've always faltered. And that is true. You can't blame that on one sector of the government or society or the other. I think we're all equally to blame in a way. Here, what has been possibly the two most, the largest or the biggest and almost insurmountable barriers they seem even today, is the lack of awareness and education amongst the general woman about her own legal rights. Most women here don't even know. For example, something as simple as what is called a zero FIR. You know, if you go to a particular police station, the police are duty-bound and law-bound to register an FIR. If they don't, you don't need to stay only in that place. You can go to some other police station and try and file the FIR. There's also a very simple thing. Most people all over the world, this is just not Indian, don't ever think of the fact that the police are equally culpable under any law of the country. We're too afraid to say that, the police is wrong. This is jolly well your job, you do it when I ask you to do it. The burden of proof may be on whoever it is later. But if you say that somebody has committed a crime against me, especially in terms of violence against women, women don't understand that the police also can be caught in their own net of refusal.
I'm going to bring in Swati first, and then we'll ask Mr. Pereira to perhaps look at some of these issues. But Swati Maliwal, if we could just look, when we look at what women understand, not understand, has the whole issue of gender-based violence or attacks against women become a woman's issue? Why is it that we'll see perhaps the NCW or the DCW under you leading this fight, but it's somehow then looked at as a women's issue? Okay, there's more serious issues of governance for, say, the chief minister or the prime minister or ex-minister to handle. This the women's bodies will look at, and somehow it's your problem.
I totally agree. For instance, you mentioned the Nirbhaya case, and if you see, a Nirbhaya fund was set up after that, and it's really sad to know that not even a single penny has been spent from that fund for the past 2 years. That itself shows what kind of, though we are all talking about women, we are talking about women's rights, but how serious are we towards it? There are right now 7,000 sanctioned posts in the police which are lying vacant in Delhi police. So why is all this happening? On one end we are talking about women's rights. On one end we are all speaking that Mahilaon ko bachao, aise karo, waise karo. But why is it that at the end of the day these issues come up? 2 weeks back I visited the Nari Niketan, that is a protection home, and the entire night I spent there. I saw so many victims of violence there, and the kind of violence that they have gone through, one cannot even imagine. A girl, she was sold in GB Road. She was rescued after 3 months, in which she had to entertain 30 men every day, and she did not get even a single penny for it. This girl, when she was rescued, she was put in Nari Niketan. And now in Nari Niketan, the kind of situation and the kind of horrific problems that she is facing with the lack of infrastructure, with absolutely no restoration happening, it's really sad. And so it's a concentrated problem, and it's not one agency. But I really feel that it's very high time that we all get down together and get our acts together on this issue.
But is that the irony? Because as I said, I mean, both of you actually head such in name very powerful bodies, but actually in terms of what you can do is limited, because yours is a recommendatory role. So if no one wants to listen to you, there's not much that you can do except raise your voice. Does that frustrate both of you, Ms. Kumaramangalam?
It does. To be brutally honest, it does, and you're absolutely right. Despite the hype around all the commissions for women, we have very limited powers. And, this is not just restricted to one party, one caste, one sector, whatever. Across the board, what we call in India the mindset, just the way we think, as, is pointed out often enough, the patriarchal attitude is so sort of reaching across all sections of society that women are somewhere almost at the bottom of the ladder. Even though we have such enormously talented women now increasingly in India who are taking over positions of power. For example, today the first head of the DRDO is a woman. And like that, we've had many firsts in the last few, I think, 5-6 years.
We've had a woman Prime Minister. America hasn't managed a woman US President yet, but we've had a woman Prime Minister.
Yeah, but despite that, the average woman in India is really not doing very well.
I want to bring in Mr. Pereira. You've heard the perspectives of the panel, and as I said, I don't want to make this about a male versus female thing, but somehow that's how the discourse actually comes up. I mean, even if you find that if there was a case perhaps of a rape victim, etc., you look for a woman police officer, or in most cases, given the ratio is so low, you won't find one. This is not, why has it become about men versus women, or this is a woman's problem issue, which Swati also referred to right now?
No, things have changed now. It used to be at one time there were no women police officers at all. Today it is mandatory for such cases to be handled by women police officers, and they are available. It is not that there is a rule that every police station has to have a female officer present at night.
But it doesn't. It happens very sketchily across the country, and even in Delhi, you'll find many police stations where you won't find women police officers at night.
Mangalam put it, there could be flaws in implementation. There could be reasons of infrastructure, not enough staff. These are all the kind of things. But then, as we keep progressing towards what we need to have, things have changed a lot. Things have from the earlier things, and it's not uncommon today to get a positive word about the police in these matters. However much the what can I say, the negative aspects of the police are being bandied around, because everyone wants to, police is a lovely, very nice whipping boy for anything and everything. I ask many people, how many police officers do you know? Do you know a single person in the police personally? Oh yes, we know. I mean, what do you think of him? Oh, they are exceptions. When you know a person personally, they become exceptions. But otherwise, whatever the service that is done by the police or given by the police to the community, to the nation, nobody bothers to talk about. Nobody really, sort of highlights it. But a single incident that happens is blown up. I won't say blown up. It should be rightfully it is publicized. But then that becomes the standard for everything, to, paint the entire force with the same brush. No. And so these are the kind of things, adversities that the police has to function against. But people who talk about these things should really go and have sample cases, make surprise visits and have, decoy complainants go and see.
No, in fact, the Delhi police has launched an operation also against sexual harassment in schools as well.
Not only that,
but how do you see, sir, from your perspective, I want to ask the rise in rape statistics? There has been 1% that the police says that now more women are speaking out. There's another perspective which says it's a breakdown of law and order, and we're seeing more and more cases of rape and violence against women being reported in India, in Delhi specifically, in other states. How do you see this epidemic which seems to be there in India as well? We talk about global, but India as well.
Don't go by the rape statistics. Believe me, majority of the rape statistically, reported are statutory rapes. There is such a thing called, where rapes are committed against.
You mean consensual?
Yes, consensual. Yeah, but then it's a mandatory
underage
case to be, yes. It's a case to be registered. So majority are these. And statistics also will tell you, when I was in charge of the crime branch, we had done these, the research on all these cases. And that's when we brought out that practically the kind of violence or kind of rapes that we talk about and we publicize and things like that, in 92% of the cases of reported cases of rape, the accused was known to the culprit, to the victim, to the prosecutor.
So I know that was the argument during Nirbhaya, so I'm not sure being known to a victim somehow makes it better.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But what I'm trying to, it is not.
So it may not be, a police may not have been able to stop it, but I'm not sure. But
I'm sorry to interrupt.
But I just want to get Andrani on that point. Mandy, you're looking a bit stunned. Why is that?
Let me complete that part of it.
Okay.
See, they're talking of domestic violence. Now, this is definitely domestic violence.
Indrani, go ahead. You wanted to say something because I saw that you had tweeted when you were arriving in India that there's a rape in India every 20 minutes, and I saw that a lot of people wrote back to you saying, worry about America, why are you worried about India, and what does this figure mean? It's meaningless. How did you take that?
I'm worried about the whole world. So for all those people who would like to tweet me, let's put that out there. Intimate partner violence is indeed violence by someone that we know intimately. And rape is rape is rape, whether I know you or I don't know you. If I don't consent, it's rape. And here's the other thing that I know. If 10 rapes are being reported as self-reporting, then 20 rapes are probably being committed, and 10 are not being reported. So while there is no one brush for everything, for every case has to be filed, every case has to be reported, and every woman who says she's raped has to be taken seriously, whether it's India or America or Tanzania or Trinidad, the whole world over. It is a crime, nothing less.
Sonia, it's also true that most rapes are committed by people who know the victim. A teacher, an uncle, a friend, a friend of the family, etc., etc. The list is endless. But as she says, that does not make it rape. It's still rape. And when the question
the point Mr. Pereira made, I think he was trying to say that often parents complain when it may be that the boy and girl are in a relationship, and I think is that the point you were trying to make?
Also,
that when you were talking about statutory rape, because otherwise if a minor girl complains, that's valid. So
no, where the parents may not know also. Where,
you mean it's being done
they elope.
So, go ahead, because this I've heard not just Mr. Pereira, many police officers say elopement is being defined as rape.
Can I connect these two? One thread that you'd mentioned about what happened to these poor girls from Nepal, was supposed to have happened to these two women from Nepal. India has one of the, I don't know if it's one of the highest rates, but we have an enormous amount of trafficking of women going on. Across the board and of all ages, poor women are being trafficked. And they end up in various, let's say, fields of work. And very often, complaints that are supposed to have been made by the parents, the girls have actually been trafficked. Now, how is a woman trafficked? She's lured into running away with somebody or going with somebody with the promise of a better life. Now, I don't know how it's legally or under the terms of the police, how it's defined. But the fact is that she's being cheated. And when she has sex with somebody, the girl may even be consensual because somebody is going to marry her later. It is, in a way, a rape. So if the complaint is made 2 years later or 6 months later or 10 days later, whatever it is, and the parents say that my daughter has been raped, where is the defining line? It's very difficult to actually say that it was not a rape, even though legally it may be argued that it's statutory, as he pointed out. But here I'd like to say something that in many cases I have seen the police in many parts of the country have been extremely cooperative. It's not always the police that's at fault. What sometimes happens is that the upper echelons of the police are far more responsive and responsible towards gender-based crimes. It's the people at the lower level often who, because of again their mindset and a lack of orientation and awareness, and sometimes unfortunately even a lack of the laws that protect women from violence, who are considered, can be considered unresponsive or, not responsive enough. Either way, a lack of awareness exists in this country, and I think in many countries in the world, where we don't accept that violence against women is violence. How many women are just used to being bashed up?
No, that
and accepted that, okay, I'm a woman, I made a mistake. You don't even question it. And that's built into that woman who's the victim of violence herself. So it's a societal cause of concern. It's not merely a question of blaming one sector or the other. It's the fact that everybody's way of even looking at violence has to change.
And we see it as a crime. I mean, I think the point about repeating Swati, you wanted to come in. Go ahead.
On this, I would like to say that it is the responsibility of those on top to ensure that that the entire system functions well. So if one actually finds out that some particular officer has not performed properly, has not filed an FIR, or has not maintained the Nari Niketan properly, then that somebody's head should roll. And if we set up these kind of examples, I really think very strongly that things will change. I would like to give you some data. If you see for Delhi, this is the data of the Delhi police, that 11,000 crime against women complaints were registered, FIRs were filed in 2014. Out of that, only in 3,000 to 4,000 cases, charge sheets were filed by the police. That when it is very well known that within 3 months of a crime against women, the charge sheet has to be filed. Out of that, only 9 people were actually convicted. So there is this entire problem of this man who comes and rapes a girl. He knows that he'll be able to get away with it. That is a very major issue. And it is not just on the police's end. If you look at the forensic science laboratories, Delhi has only one forensic science laboratory. And even in that, 10,000 cases are pending. So, and if you see all the material, the forensic material, after 6 months, it loses its value. So what happens? So you are actually, if the cases are pending in court just for the want of one forensic lab report. Apart from that, if you look at the courts, a POXO court has been set up which to specifically look into the girl-child issues. It's really, really shocking to know that there are no separate courts. Even in Delhi, the court which is handling POXO cases is also handling murder. So at the same time, when you are face-to-face, the judge is face-to-face with a hardcore criminal, the judge is also looking at the girl's issue.
And the child often testifies with her abuser in court. I mean,
absolutely, and it's such a long and delayed process, even in victims of trafficking. The process is so delayed, the girl is put into the Nari Niketan, and by the end of 3 years or 4 years, she feels, let me just retract my statement, at least I'll get out of Nari Niketan.
She's actually in jail. I wanted to bring that point of trafficking because you, of course, went to GB Road, the hub of really prostitution in Delhi, which exists under the eyes of everyone, whether it's the police, the MLAs, the MPs, everyone knows it's there. And you made that point, which is said to made that prostitution is like rape, and we are actually sanctioning it by letting this exist in the heart of our capital city. Do you stand by that? Because that's a controversial statement, really, to equating prostitution with rape.
What I said was that over 98% women in GB Road have been trafficked at one point of time. All the women whom I met, they came up with horrific stories of sexual violence. And these violences, these rape are not even reported. 25 to 30 times a girl is having to entertain a man and the money doesn't come to her. This is the situation that is prevailing in GB Road. And what DCW is trying to do about it is, we are not saying that you leave prostitution. We are not saying that to anybody. We are going to be working with those women to create an alternate life for them. Whoever wants to come out, and believe you me, there are many women, after I made this statement, so many people have come to me and told me that I want to come out, please bring me out of this mess. So we are working with them. At the same time, there are health issues, there are condoms not being available in GB Road. What about the second level, second generation prostitution? There are 2.5 years girls, 4 years girls, 6 years girls. There are over 1,500 children right now on GB Road. Who will look after them? These are the questions that we are trying to raise.
Mr. Pereira, again, I mean, in a way, you don't represent the current Delhi police at all, but just that's a larger question, and I had done a program on trafficking some months ago, and this came up as well, that when you talk about trafficking, we can see it happening under our eyes. Where is law enforcement? Where are the politicians when something like this is happening? How we let such a situation prevail? We're talking about Nepal, many of the young Nepalese girls are brought to GB Road, to Calcutta, and then actually in the descent to the Gulf countries as well.
It's not easy to really talk about these things in the sense, but many of the things that I want to say have already been said by, like for instance, a simple thing like only so many charge sheets go to court. Why? Why? You think the police don't want to put the charge sheets in the court?
No, I can imagine it very frustrating for the police.
But we want each one of those cases registered. It's a black point, any case registered. Why is there non-registration? Because if that case is not worked out, it's a black mark against the investigating officer. Nobody wants the cases to fail. But then the system is such that the cases can never go to court. You register the cases, and then what happens? The law requires, our constitution requires each one of us to be a witness, to depose in a court of law when we are asked to. How many of us are prepared to do that? You know, nobody, everyone wants a conviction, but nobody wants to give evidence for conviction. How do you adduce evidence in a case, 2 years old case, in which no complaint has been made? And when the complaint, if at all, comes in, you don't have evidence. What evidence do you, who is there to come and say that this has happened? Only the prosecutrix?
But how do we change this, Mr. Pereira? When you look at what you would tell a next generation of police officers, how do you change this?
In America, you have a different system. The police are the most harassed, but then the police are given the most powerful, you know, what can I say, laws and the most effective action. His gun speaks before. We don't want that kind of a system. We have held back. We have held the British system where, you know, one of the prime ministers said that the day I have to arm my policemen, you know, we might as well, you know, close the society. It would be a sad day. So we don't want the police to have any high-handed methods. I won't call them high-handed methods. In America, the policemen get killed all the time. There is a gun law which permits, you know, open use of guns. But then what happens? Here, we can't even handcuff a person. When we arrest a person, you know, we have to treat him with more respect than any other common citizen. So the rights, you know, these are the dilemma that are faced by field people, where there is no evidence in a case. You can't file a charge sheet, and the society will cry, oh, so much. See, 11,000 cases registered, 3 charge sheets have gone in. So what do you do?
But I strongly,
There has to, yes, go ahead.
right, I very strongly disagree, because whenever certain lacunas are pointed out, the major issue that comes up is that we do not have powers. Even in the cases of commissions, if you say, whenever it is said that, you know, why was this not done, we also come up with, you know, that there are no powers. But I would like to disagree. Even in the present mandate of the Delhi Commission of Women, we can do a lot of things. The question is, are we doing those things? Most of the times we are not. So if we start doing our whatever is required properly, we should be able to do it. And if there are certain problems, that the way he's pointing it out, why don't we go to court with it? Why don't we actually raise it on the correct forums? Why don't we talk about police reforms, and why don't we get it going?
I mean, it's a laughing matter today talking about police reforms. The Supreme Court has ordered the police reforms. Some basic, you know, what can I say, nominal police reforms, which have been defied by every chief minister. 90% of the police reforms ordered by the Supreme Court have not been implemented.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say...
What do you mean it is okay? It's not okay.
No,
even a Supreme Court order is not the thing, and you say it's okay?
No, I'm not saying that.
Then
I'm not saying
you are saying that.
No, I'm not saying that.
Let's not be equivocal.
No,
it's
please.
very clear. Police reforms are a matter of joke in this country. There is no police reform.
I would like to just complete my
Nobody wants police reforms, because the moment the police is reformed, the politician loses his clout, the bureaucrat loses his clout, everybody loses their, you know, and the question is, who will police the police?
I'm going to get both to respond, but Lalita ji, go ahead. You want to say something? And that was, political will is key. You've got a new government, but where's the political will on fixing gender-based violence?
But there is another problem that I sometimes feel, and I'm, you know, going out of my way to say, this is my personal opinion, not the opinion of the chairperson of the National Commission for Women. Too often issues are politicized to the extent in this country where it becomes, you know, you or me. According to me, we are collectively at fault. I agree with part of what Swatiji says, that even the existing powers given to the commissions, if we even use those, we can get a lot of work done. But I also think that the commissions do need more powers. I mean, it's like a dichotomy what I'm saying, but I agree with partly what she says. I also agree with what Mr. Pereza says, that the police is often not always at fault. But he must also accept that often the police is at fault. I can come up with innumerable number of cases, and I'm probably saying, you know, 1 out of 1,000th of what goes on in this country, if not less, where the police is actively almost, I wouldn't say colluded, but been at fault in pushing a girl into a situation that she has not been able to get out of, especially with regard to violence. There have also been cases where the police has done pretty good work.
No, of course. I don't think anybody
so
is saying
it's not a question of I'm at fault and you're not at fault.
Us versus them, of course. I mean, it's looking at how we can actually connect the various dots together. I think
this is what India lacks. We lack the cohesion, we lack the coordination.
And I think I have to say the political will, regardless of which government it is, I think the political will, because why is it that the Women and Child Development Ministry is always seen as a soft ministry, which no one, it's a demotion if someone gets it, but our big ministries are top
four. We still have just 13% of women in parliament, even though we have 33% at the panchayat level, and lakhs of women who are now trained.
In some states,
in some states 50%. So I mean, it's also, I think, a question, like I said, of getting women into positions of power.
I want to actually bring in Mandy Mordat, because I'm sorry, I think we went very much into that India-specific focus. But just to broaden the discussion and bring that back, but women in positions of power. It was interesting when I think Lalita ji had mentioned a bit about domestic violence, and we see it across various stratas of society. And in America especially, I think this kind of celebrity violence we've seen it, if a pop star like Rihanna can get beaten up and the person accused of it walks around free. I mean, it's almost seen as part of the glamour that surrounds someone's bad boy image. The entertainment industry, especially in Hollywood, has often been accused of being part of that whole persona that, oh, it's all right. You've seen many famous stars who've been accused of violence against women walk free, and their careers are unaffected, their lives are unaffected. Why do you think women in powerful positions would accept this in the first place? And do you think in a sense it gets reinforced when you see people who are celebrities involved in something like this?
I don't know if I agree necessarily that it's glamorized. I mean, I think people really have to take accountability and responsibility, and I think in that particular case, he was definitely demonized for his abhorrent behavior. I don't know. I mean, I can only speak for myself and the choices that I make, and I feel like you know, the work that I'm fortunate enough to get to do and the platform that I have because of it, to me, it's about keeping this conversation going and engaging in an appropriate dialogue. I think that's sort of what's, you know, most important, or at least what I can kind of contribute to the conversation.
What's the conversation like when you speak to women in America, when you speak to women you know around you, or women you may have met who are victims of violence in a country like America? Because in a sense, some of the issues may be different, but have you found any commonality when you talk to women in America who have faced violence and women in other countries?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. I think there's definitely common ground wherever you go. You know, I think it's really just, it's important to continue the conversation and to, at least speaking from like a global health perspective, making the link between healthy lives and violence. And I think that's something that's been an interesting conversation here, and integrating, to me, that's kind of been my biggest takeaway from visiting India, is integrating, you know, screening for violence into regular like health screening. So like when a woman goes in for family planning services, or she goes in for like a cervical cancer screening, training healthcare providers and doctors to screen for signs of violence, and then appropriately sort of direct the woman to, you know, sort of the social services and the infrastructure that already exists here in their communities.
So you see violence as a health issue as well, not just a crime issue.
It's not just an issue of criminality. There's definitely a link between health, and that's something that I think Indrani's foundation and PSI is working really hard to sort of make that connection.
Indrani, do you find those global health links, or whatever linked as it were, when you look at it as a health, and you made that point, it's a health, why do you see it as a health issue?
It is the biggest health issue right now. If we don't look at the way that a woman is raised from the time she's born, and if, as Lalita ji said, we expect to be beaten up, and then we say we make a mistake, we are taught from a very early age that, you know, you're always making mistakes. It's okay to get beaten. We accept more violence in our lives. If we are taught early on that we deserve respect, that everyone deserves respect, the family has to be whole and complete.
And that we don't come last in our families.
Right. A healthy family is a healthy India. A healthy India is good for the whole world. The health of a woman is good for the whole world. It is the biggest health issue that we're facing. It is the biggest issue that's in front of our face that seems to still be invisible.
Yeah, and it was just said by the head of the IMF that when there is a decrease in violence against women, all forms of violence, here we are talking just the most overt form that we see every day, which is physical. But there are many other forms of violence which are non-physical and which are equally dangerous and in many ways equally harmful. I mean, I can go on and on, but the fact is that when there is less violence against women, actually the gross domestic product, the economics of a country improve.
No, I wanted to make that because we talked about attitudes and positions of power. Mandy, of course, the U.S. coming off the election, and I made that point earlier that the U.S. has never had a woman president. But this campaign and some of the comments we've seen so far have been incredibly sexist. And we've seen it whether it's against a woman, Donald Trump, against a woman TV anchor, and recent comments he's made on Hillary Clinton. And no, I know you're not a spokesperson of Donald Trump at all. But my point is that, yeah. But my point, bizarrely, he's leading opinion polls. And this is my point, that somehow it's kind of okay, and in a way it's almost, you know, when you call somebody a feminazi, and it's almost cool to be, you know, politically incorrect and say, okay, we support some of the most outrageous statements Donald Trump has made because this is our voice and this is part of our freedom of expression. Why do you think there's an audience for that? Why do you think people don't just call this out? Not for Donald Trump necessarily, but across.
He specifically is just really galvanizing. You know, you either love him or you totally dislike him, but there's always going to be an audience for that. I mean, that's the great thing about this world. Like, there's room for everybody. There's room for everybody's opinion, whether we like it or not.
But does that reflect, Indrani, an opinion which is out there, and an opinion which isn't ashamed of being vocal? I mean, let's say, putting aside Donald Trump, we've seen various, when the Hillary Clinton, last time when she was possibly going to be in the U.S. presidential candidate, there was the whole issue then as well about, okay, a woman, we may be the most developed country in the world, etc., but we're not ready for this yet.
There is definitely a view, I think, in many countries of the world, where women aren't smart enough or strong enough to lead. And instead of us focusing on that, I would love for us to begin to teach the girl that she can become anything she wants. And let's take, you know, this government is now save the girl child, educate the girl child. If we take this platform and really make it work, we could see significant change in as little as 10 to, 15 years, where women are riding the wave of equality. And we can forget about the people who think that we are not capable. We can just send them a very strong message of,
by just going
watch us now.
Yeah, just going out and doing it.
We need to empower the girl child, really empower her by telling her from the time she's born that you're not just a girl, you're a human being. You're smart, you're clever, you're loyal, you're dedicated. I mean, women, according to me, are the strongest sex. Now, I'm probably going to get pilloried, like I often say. But we have so much more emotional strength. Men go to pieces very often. Sorry, Mr. Kodera.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. I always consider
I was always taught
creation
that I'm a very strong person. So till today, I don't even expect anybody else to. If they criticize me, I just say, okay, I mean, like she said, get lost. I just don't agree with you. But so few girls are given this opportunity to feel good about themselves because they are women. It's normally just the opposite throughout the world, that you're a woman, you're a girl. Oh my God. You know, I have 2 daughters, and I keep telling people that till today I'm told you have only 2 daughters. So I've learned very early in my life to say, thank God I don't have sons, you know. I have 2 daughters, they're so much easier to deal with, and so I'm so much more happier with my 2 daughters. But it's
a mindset.
Also, how you're taught to think about yourself.
No, of course, it's a mindset you hear across the world. But so coming back to as we're at the final round of the dialogue now, but coming back to what really must change, and young people were seen to be very much at the forefront of this movement, and not so much just young women, but young men being involved as part of this. Yet the irony, I mean, we see the ironies, we see these. Every day there's a new young woman on television saying this man has done this to me, then there'll be some investigation, and then maybe this is not come. It's become almost antagonistic. The whole relationship we're seeing right now seems to be this whole men versus women thing, and we're not looking at a holistic issue where it's not about, okay, looking at the woman as a minority or somebody who needs a quota, but just a woman as an equal. I mean, as a young person yourself, why are we in this, when we should be more progressive, we seem to be actually going a bit backwards?
I think it's the media which is doing that.
So what was a Braveheart? I mean, I saw it.
That is what that is media's creation. If you see for a normal person, I mean, I have my colleagues who are men and they are treating me well. But that said, that doesn't mean that there is not discrimination at workplaces. There is a lot of discrimination at workplaces, but I don't see it as this kind of an antagonistic thing which is men versus women. I don't think that is really happening in the society. That is something that is totally media's creation. But like I also mentioned about the workplace. So if you see the workplace, there was this mention about the implementation of acts which are not proper. I would like to highlight that the Sexual Harassment Act of Sexual Harassment Against Women at the Workplace Act was passed in 2013. Till now, an appellate authority has not been set up. And we are talking about, you know, the children, the girl child should grow, the girl child should study, the girl child should get a job, all of these things. If you don't have an appellate authority under the Act for the past 2 years, where does this poor girl child or where does this poor woman actually go when she is harassed at the workplace? So all these issues are there. There are good laws. The police is also doing good jobs in many places. I'm not contesting that at all. All I'm trying to say is that because we are a monitoring agency, we will be talking about the lacunas. So all the lacunas in our institutions, the lacunas in our laws and the system and also the society, like Lalita ji and the others have been mentioning, there is this problem, and it's also not just the health, I would like to say, it is also an issue of economics, especially in India. If you are poor, if you are extremely poor, you are treated in that particular manner by the man. If that woman only starts earning, there has been this is a very common phenomenon in India. I'm not generalizing it, but it is true that if you start earning, then you have more respect in the home. The mother-in-law also treats you a little better. It's not for all. I mean, there are women who are earning a lot of money and still facing shit at home. You know, it is true. So all this thing, the system and the society, there are too many lacunas, there are too many problems, and I really feel that it's not just about talking about them. I think it's very, very important, and everybody plays a role. If a person is a superintendent in Nari Niketan, that person plays a role. If a person is walking on the street and sees something wrong happening, that person also has a role. The police has a role, the government has a role, we have a role, everybody has a role. And if we start doing that well, I think things will change.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
With regard to the number of people who have roles, we never look at our teachers. I keep telling people nowadays that along with potty training, we need to train our children. I'm consciously using that word, to learn to respect each other regardless of gender. If we can start that young, then you'll at least after maybe a couple of generations at least, you would have genuinely perhaps a society where there is what we are calling equality.
But do we say something?
Yes.
We have to bring the men and boys into the conversation.
Yes, we have to.
I have not, very few women I've met who are abused want to destroy their marriage. Some of the women we spoke to yesterday, one woman was so brilliant. She said, yes, I've been abused, but I want support for the men and the boys in our community. I want them to go someplace. I personally feel that nobody wakes up in the morning and says, aha, I'm going to abuse somebody today. It's because they don't know how to handle their frustrations and their anger in economic situations. So we have to bring the men and the boys into the fold. And we have to respect everybody. And you said it's everybody's job.
Yes.
I know a brilliant man in my life. His name's Marshall. He says it's my job too. If everyone would repeat that, this thing would be fixed like that. It's my job.
About changing negative gender norms and sort of reframing what it means to be masculine and bringing in this idea of masculinity equaling compassion.
Right,
as well,
exactly.
You know?
And it's not more emotional. Just it's fine. I mean, again, because I have the two heads of Commission of Women, Swati, politicians are usually very good at paying lip service. And at the time when the AAP government came in, there's a lot of hope that there'll be CCTV cameras in the buses for women, there'll be marshals everywhere, there'll be, I mean, what eventually happened, we don't have a woman in the cabinet. We talk about women being seen in positions of power, and of course no woman should be there because of her gender, but surely there are competent women MLAs that could have been included. If a government doesn't include women in its fold, how do you send out the message of an equal government? I mean, we talk about, separate compartments for women, separate buses for women. We almost talk about putting women into little corners or boxes, but we don't see women at the round table of power in a way at all. And for AAP, which I promised a lot of things, that didn't happen. Why?
Firstly, I would like to clarify, I'm not an Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson. So I'm actually the wrong person to ask this question from, because
as the Delhi Commission of Women President, I'd like to ask you.
I can tell, because even when you introduced me as an Aam Aadmi Party political person, but it is not true. I'm not even a member of the Aam Aadmi Party. But that is true. The CCTV cameras should come, the marshals should come, and this entire one has to, even with all the passion of the Andolan or whatever, there is this bureaucracy, there is this bureaucratic apathy that one has to deal with. I dealt with it in the Nari Niketan. That was my one experience. I went there. I was told that within 3 or 4 days, this mess that I have come out and told the world about will get cleaned. For 2 weeks, I did not go. Then I went back again and I saw the same thing, the same situation, and I thought I had given deliberately 2 weeks, and in fact I was in touch with the minister, and the minister himself told me that no, we are getting it done, I have given the orders. I knew that he has given the orders, but when I went and saw, it was very shocking. So then I again went back to him and I told him that look, the situation is the same. So now he's calling me and now he's going to give very detailed written orders, and then we are going to be monitoring. So there are various issues and it needs to be seen in a holistic manner. But I totally stand by it that the CCTV cameras should come in Delhi, the marshals should come in Delhi. In fact, there is a victim compensation law which actually increases the victim compensation from 3 lakhs to 7.5 lakhs. The same has been pending in the Home Department for the past 3 years. So we have now written to them, and now we are going to sit with them, sit with the files. I am going to make sure that I am going to be there. I don't know whether I have the powers to do it or not, but I am going to be definitely going there, sitting there, and I am going to be making sure that it gets passed.
Thank you all very much. It was very nice to have you in the panel.
Thank you for using your platform for bringing this out in the open. It's perfect timing, and we appreciate what you are doing.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much for being part of the show. Thank you.